Hotel, how y'all doing? I'm gonna get right down to it. Was the continent that we currently know as Africa today named after a Roman general, Scipio Africanus? Emphatically no. I continue to get into conversations with individuals who seem, for some odd reason, seem to want to push the narrative that the continent known as Africa was named after the Roman general Scipio Africanus. And I'm not saying that the name Africa was applied to that continent in ancient times, but I am saying that the continent that we know today as Africa was not named after Scipio Africanus. In our actuality, the surname Africanus was applied to Publius Cornelius Scipio because a certain region, a certain province, a certain area of the continent that we currently know as Africa was called Africa. Okay, the name Africanus comes from Africa. Africa does not come from Africanus. So I would just briefly like to make a video about that, so I could just I'm just gonna try to hit the points real fast, and hopefully I won't have to have this conversation anymore. And if you have ever had this conversation or had this debate, hopefully you could just refer someone to this video to show them that if they are saying that the name Africa comes from the name Africanus, they're just simply wrong. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference Roman sources. Why would I reference Roman sources? Well, Scipio Africanus, his name is actually Publius Cornelius Scipio, and he was a Roman general who served in the Second Punic Wars against Carthage and against the famous Hannibal. And he is the Roman general who subsequently, with the help of the Numidian king Massinissa, defeated Hannibal and won the Punic Wars for the Roman Empire. So if Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus was a Roman general, I think it would best serve our purposes to go to the Roman historian sources to see what they say about the name Africa and about the name Africanus. Okay, so one of the first Roman sources that we're going to look at Livy. Livy is known for writing the histories of the Roman Empire. Several of his books are lost to us today, but a good majority of them remain. And seeing as how Livy endeavored to write the history of Rome, he included an extensive part on the Punic Wars, the wars with Hannibal. So in Livy's works, we find a reference to this Scipio and a reference to what I'm saying, that the name Africanus comes from the name Africa. So what we're going to look at is, this is my version of the book that I have. This one is called Livy, Hannibal's War, but it's actually his history of Rome. It's books 21 through 30. And the quote that I'm going to go to is in book 21. In the book that I'm holding, it's on page 46. And what I'm going to do is right here at the bottom, he's talking about Scipio, and I'm just going to read a section to you guys. Okay? He says, in reference to Scipio, this was to be the young man who would have the distinction of terminating this war, the Second Punic War, and who would be called Africanus for his outstanding victory over Hannibal and the Carthaginians. This was, I'm going to read it again. This was to be the young man who would have the distinction of terminating this war and who would be called Africanus for his outstanding victory over Hannibal and the Carthaginians. So Livy is telling us plainly that because of his outstanding victory over Hannibal in the Second Punic War, he was then called Africanus. So he was called Africanus after the Punic War, after the wars in Africa. Okay? So I want you to see it. Right above my fingers where it says Africanus. Okay? You see? Who would be called Africanus. And really, I honestly don't have to go to any other source after that. But just to drive the point home, next I'm going to go to Plutarch. Okay, Plutarch was another Roman historian. He was sort of like an autobiographical writer. He wrote about the lives of important Greeks and Romans, and he compared similar individuals with similar job titles, similar positions, similar statuses within Roman and Greek culture, and he compared the two individuals. So in Plutarch's lives, in Plutarch's life of a man named Caius Marius, in page 604 of my version, okay, he makes a fleeting reference to Scipio. He says, we are altogether ignorant of any third name of Caius Marius, as also of Quintus Sertorius, that possessed himself of Spain, or of Lucius Mummius, that destroyed Corinth, though this last was surnamed Achaeus for his conquest, as Scipio was called Africanus. As Scipio was called Africanus. So he says, though this last was surnamed Achaeus from his conquest, as Scipio was called Africanus, implying that Scipio was called Africanus from his conquest or from his victory in the Second Punic War with Hannibal, just as Livy documented. Okay, his name was Publius Cornelius Scipio, and he was later called Africanus because he had a victory in the area that was known as Africa to the Roman Empire. You see? So when people tell you that Africa was named after Publius Scipio Africanus, they're wrong. Publius Cornelius Scipio was actually named Africanus after Africa. The name Africa preceded Africanus. Okay? To historical references, Roman historical references about a Roman general. And I'll go to one more. I really don't think I should have to. Really, after Livy, it was over. But I'll do one more. Okay, this is Sallust. Okay, he was a Roman historian who documented the Jugurthine War and something that they call the Conspiracy of Catiline. All right. Now, in this book that I have, if anybody have this book and you just want to reference the actual page number that I'm going to, it's in page 39, where he is talking about the Jugurthine War. Now, the Jugurthine War, he's actually talking about a war that Rome had with a Numidian king named Jugurtha. And if you remember at the beginning of the video, I said that Scipio, Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus, he was able to defeat Hannibal with the help of a Numidian king named Massinissa. Numidia was a African empire that was on the borders of Carthage, to the west of Carthage. You had the Numidian Empire, and so Jugurtha was a Numidian king who came sometime after Massinissa. So you can see how when talking about the wars between Rome and Jugurtha in Numidia, the subject of Hannibal, Scipio, the Punic Wars would come up. So that's why this reference is even made when speaking about the Jugurthine War, the wars with Jugurtha that came centuries later. Okay, so on page 39, excuse me, Sallust says, all right, he says, during the Second Punic War, in which the Carthaginian commander Hannibal had dealt Italy the severest blows it had ever suffered since Rome became a great nation, the Numidian king Massinissa was admitted to Roman friendship by Publius Scipio, whose high qualities later gained him the title Africanus. Okay, just like I told you, Publius Cornelius Scipio was able to defeat Hannibal of Carthage in the Second Punic War with help from the Numidian king Massinissa. And for this help, Publius Cornelius Scipio gave certain amounts of land and rights and high honors to Massinissa, the Numidian king. So this is what he's talking about. And you see here that Sallust, another Roman historian who lived from 86 BCE to 35 BCE, okay, before the Common Era, right? He documents that the name Africanus was later added to the name Publius Scipio because of his high qualities and the winning of the war, just like all of the other Roman historians document. I'm going to read the entire sentence again. During the Second Punic War, in which the Carthaginian commander Hannibal had dealt Italy the severest blows it had ever suffered since Rome became a great nation, the Numidian king Massinissa was admitted to Roman friendship by Publius Scipio, whose high qualities later gained him the title Africanus. Later gained him the title Africanus. Okay? You see? So, his name was not Africanus until after he had wars in the province of Africa. So, the next time someone tells you that Africa was named after Scipio Africanus, you can politely tell them, I'm sorry, but that's incorrect. Actually, Publius Scipio was later named Africanus after he defeated Hannibal in the Second Punic Wars in the province already known as Africa. Now, I'm not saying Africa is just a ancient term. This video is not to deal with where the term Africa originated. Even when the Greek historian Herodotus talks about the continent that we know as Africa today, he doesn't call it Africa. You know, he uses terms like Libya a lot. But during the time, and just for the sake of the video, during the time of Publius Cornelius Scipio, who was called Africanus, the name Africa was already applied to a certain region in what we know as Africa, the continent today. So was the continent of Africa named Africa after the Roman general Publius Scipio Africanus? Emphatically no. And I gave you 1, 2, 3 different Roman sources to prove my point. I gave you Livy, I gave you Plutarch, and I gave you Sallust. I hope this helped any discussions that you may have in the future. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the like button, and you know, share this. And then, you know, hotel.